Hey, Jared, can you hear me okay? Hey, Jared, can you hear me all right?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes, I was having a little bit of technology challenges earlier today, so
I was worried. I was expecting to have to hit the #6, which I always forget to do, and the one time I remember, I don't have to.
Right. I know it's always adjusting back and forth, even in the Zoom environment. And I think on my end with starting the new job, it's like I'm back and forth a lot and I keep getting resettled back. And every time I try to get with technology, it changes. And then sometimes flipping between Teams and the other platforms causes a little bit of
hiccup. Any given day I'm on Zoom meetings, WebEx team meetings, Microsoft Teams meetings, Google Meet. So it's and each one has its own kind of quirks, and depending on how they're set up, they can be even more quirky. So
it definitely does. I totally feel you. And I had that many, it started off this morning because it was like I had to be in a meeting, and then I realized the audio wasn't working, the video wasn't working. I had to call in. They could hear me, but I had to reboot and retest everything. So I'm sure there's some of y'all joining us that can relate to those struggles as well. So
I've gotten into the habit now of just calling into all meetings. It's much more reliable, and I avoid any of that, because the worst case scenario is there's just no video. You can always hear me.
Right. Exactly.
Which is never bad, so it's kind of a habit I've developed, and it works well.
Now I got to get into the new routines, even though it's been a couple of years. It's always just adjusting. So, well, I see we've got hi Steven. So good to see you. So, hey Kim, we're gonna have a lot of new faces joining us this meeting too. So just kind of we've still got a little bit before Steven will start his talk. And my name's Tanya. For those of you that haven't met me, I'm the chapter president, and this is Jared Gaspard, who's over our programs and speakers as well. So, I'd like to kind of kick it off. For those of you that are new and joining us for the first time, if you could put in the chat where you're from and how you heard about us. I'm going to give a special shout out a little later. One of my friends that I know promoted us pretty heavily on LinkedIn.
Everyone must be from nowhere because I don't see the chat going up yet.
Everybody's just getting settled and getting on too. So,
all right, well, Steven, it's going to be a tough crowd. Nobody's talking, so you got to pull it out of them.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
All right.
Steven, it's good to see you again. I had actually, when I was thinking about different speakers, I had remembered when you spoke for us in Baton Rouge on the communities of practice, and I'd seen a lot on your LinkedIn profile and just realized how much you've grown in the Agile community. So I feel really great that you're having the opportunity to speak for us tonight, because I think it's going to be a topic that's very well received.
Not a problem.
Somebody from the West Coast, way out, West Coast, California, Texas.
Yep.
Oh my goodness, Virginia.
Yeah.
New Orleans.
We've been really successful with our reach in the last few months, and it's been terrific having folks come from here as far as Los Angeles. We've had a lot of participation from Texas, Dallas area. The New Orleans chapter, we've had a lot of folks join us from there. So we've been really fortunate. We've had to actually up our capacity in our Zoom subscription to accommodate the attendees, which is a great problem to have, right? No issues with that.
Right.
Increasing our reach is really kind of part of the mission. So we're super grateful.
It is. And I think it's just kind of a testament to the power of networking too, and LinkedIn. I mean, that's been something I don't know. I've realized it, but I really started realizing it after COVID, just how far of a reach that can get you, and like I said, I'm waiting for the person to join, but just even having different people kind of cross promote us and get the word out, which, I think even Steven's topic tonight is just going to appeal to a lot of people, because I know for me, I've had several different titles that haven't always aligned with exactly what I'm doing. So having some clarity, some of that will help. Hey, Larry. Let's see.
That just happened. The area manager, the area service manager, it came out to talk to me. Nothing has been done.
Uh-oh, we might need to mute him.
I think, Larry, you might be having a work conversation.
Somebody
keep it going. I need to hear.
Sounds like another day at the office, right?
Well, this was almost like when when Doug spoke for us, and it was cracking me up because I knew he had the music pre-planned to all align with like disaster recovery and be like a theme show. But whenever the music came on, everybody was like, wait a minute, somebody needs to put themselves on mute. This isn't what's supposed to be happening. Okay.
It sounds like it was a juicy conversation, but we probably don't want to hear the rest of it.
Probably. So
at least it's a conversation. There was a recent incident where a city councilman took his mic into the restroom with him.
Oh, embarrassing.
The audio was caught on a YouTube, so it went to a few places he never wanted it to go.
Embarrassing. Oh my gosh.
You always have to be careful.
Everyone's got one of those, right? It's almost like that time. It's almost like when you have that one mistake and someone's like, "Hey, you were BCC, by the way." Like,
yeah.
Oh no.
Yeah.
I just lit someone up.
Michael has jokes. Flushing, New York.
I'm like getting a chance to read all of the comments and see where everybody is from. So, all right. Hi, Amy. Hi, Andy and Brian, and seeing a lot of familiar faces on here too. So if it's your first time here, we've still got probably about 7 to 10 minutes before our speaker starts, just to let people into the room. So feel free to turn on your camera and tell us where you're joining from. And if you got your PMP or studying for your PMP. Okay, nobody studying?
Yes, hi, this is Saidu from Bangladesh.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you.
Yes, I've just completed my PMO exam in last December 21st.
So you just
still work. Yes, and still working hard to get to know each and every project management guidelines, and so that I can do better in that domain.
Right. So you took it back in December?
Yes.
Okay. Let's see.
And it's still trying to get into the quizzes and so many questions, what is in the payment portal as well.
Okay. And I see somebody else, a familiar face joining us, Lee Lambert. He was our speaker from last month, is actually joining us again.
Good to see you.
Sounds like another good turnout.
It is. We've definitely been kind of increasing our numbers. So, and I wanted to give a special shout out. I see who joined us, my friend Ashaki from Detroit. So Ashaki actually shared the message of this with a lot of her different colleagues on LinkedIn and Facebook. And so after she communicated that to me, I've definitely seen, the impact. So, that's just kind of an encouragement point to people on the phone too. Just sharing the messages really helps to pull in engagement from different areas and kind of different methodologies too, because even though we talk about project management all the time, there's so many different offshoots, and everybody's experience and stories is going to add a little bit of different flavor to the pot. So thank you, Ishaki, and everybody else that joined us. Okay, we're actually up to about 84 participants. So just let's see, we've got about 7 minutes, a couple of quick chapter announcements. For those of you that do have your PMP and are current members of the Baton Rouge chapter, we will be reporting the professional development units on your behalf. So I would say give that about 3 to 5 days after the meeting. There's a lot of people that are on the phone too that do have their PMP, but actually aren't current members of the chapter. I will be providing the claim code for this meeting so that afterwards you can self-report the claim or the credits on PMI.org.
Hey, just a heads up. This is Steven Naylor. I'm a member of the Baton Rouge chapter. I had some trouble claiming my code from Mr. Lambert's session a month ago. Well, what happened was I tried to use when you go to PMI.org and there's the link that says I have a claim code. Right. And I used that and it wouldn't work. So I actually had to go through and actually put in the claim code like you normally would, and then it filled in the rest for me. So the little link on PMI.org just would not work for me like this. I guess it's like a shortcut link.
Okay.
So just kind of wanted to give everybody a heads up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I actually for some reason, there's an echo going on. Okay, it stopped. And just kind of a quick thing, and this is on the national side of PMI, not the local chapter, but I was on a president's call last night and I heard some different things about the auto renew feature. And I know there's people on the phone that have reached out to me on that. I think they did a conversion on some of the data recently. So there might be some processes with the auto renew and the claim codes that are just being impacted by some of the technical behind the scenes. Happens to us locally, happens nationally. It probably happens to most of us at our jobs that we go through that. So just, if y'all run into those errors or need investigation into what's going on, just reach out to our chapter too, and we'll try to get the answers for you and see what we can do. So.
It looks like we've got Michael Zarek on the line, who is one of our in-person speakers for later this month. So thank you for joining us, Michael. Glad to see you here.
Happy to be here.
Hey, Michael.
Appreciate that.
I know, I'm looking forward to that and seeing y'all all again in person next week for the ones that can make it. And I know there's a lot of people on the line. It's going to be a little bit of a travel for that, but our chapter has been doing a blend of both, so I mean, we're trying to get back, to in person as well, after COVID, and just kind of gauging things and having, still hosting these remote opportunities to give us the chance to connect with a wider audience and get more input. So. Okay, we're actually up to 100. I know the registration we reached close to about 200. And I know I say on the communication, that it starts about 5:45. So, but I'd like to encourage Steven to tell us a little bit about himself too, while we're in this interim.
Okay, I'm Steve McGee, right? I'm an independent consultant right now. I work for Louisiana Department of Health. I'm an Enterprise Agile coach there. And I've been coaching now for about 10 years. I'm a co-author on a book on Agile that did pretty well in the marketplace. And my most favorite job is a job I just left. I worked for IBM, and I was I got a chance to travel around the globe and teach Agile, and help to launch Agile teams for SAP projects. And in total, I've probably taught about 2,000 students. As a matter of fact, I have a class going on tonight at Delgado Community College. So I currently teach. I'm a resident of Prairieville, Louisiana, and I grew up in New Orleans. I'm from the lower ninth ward of New Orleans, and left there and spent 23 years in the Air Force in the IT and communications and command and control business. Retired from the Air Force and came back and worked out on the lakefront at the Information Technology Center out there. And since then, I've sort of been floating around. I worked at Blue Cross Blue Shield of Louisiana. I worked at for SAIC, for Bearing Point, for some of the top consulting companies. And now I'm close to retirement, so I took off on my own, and I have my own small boutique called Agile Mindset. And that's what I'm focused on now. One of my hobbies is, and Dave Gage brought it up, is sailing. And I've found a way to apply, and at least in my mind, the concepts of sailing to Agile. You know how we have Scrum with the 3 roles, and basically on a sailboat, there's 3 roles. There's the skipper, there's the helmsman, and there's the crew. And it's the same as the product owner, the Scrum master, and the Agile team. So in getting out on Lake Pontchartrain sailing, I found a lot of analogies with Agile, as well as a lot of the problems with bad crew and folks that won't listen to orders, and family members that don't know what a skipper is and feel like they don't have to do what a skipper says. Those kind of little things. So I've learned to perfect my coaching skills out there on the water, and I want to apply some of that tonight and have some discussions about that.
That sounds fantastic. I love the analogy too. And I don't know, you said the lakefront. So I graduated as a skipper. I went to Mandeville High.
Okay, all right.
From there, went on to Baton Rouge, and from there came over to Lafayette. So spent a bunch of time running around different places in Louisiana.
Okay.
Well, Steven, I'm looking forward to your topic. I love this. I was sharing this story today. In my personal work career, I went from, a hard IT waterfall environment as a fairly recently minted PMP into an agile software startup. And I spent some of my most formative years, in that adjustment period, right? And we were in oil and gas. So, it didn't really matter how agile we wanted to be. Our customers weren't that interested, right? They still saw the world in the oil and gas industry as a very waterfall, predictive-based planning world. So, the idea of trying to maintain the agile principles and the agile mindset in that environment is a topic I'm familiar with. It's very challenging. So I'm really looking forward to your topic tonight. Thanks so much for coming to share with us.
That's very good. And we're not going to get into the details of the agile mindset, practice, and principles, but we are going to talk about the problem of trying to execute agile in a traditional environment. It's all over the place. One of the things that I worked for PepsiCo, for McCormick, and all of those companies. They weren't born digital. They were born traditional, and they're still traditional. And you have to figure out how to make agile work. There's benefits there for that. And also there's a spectrum out there. There's a degree of agile. You don't have to be scaled agile completely. You could, right. There's other options and so forth. And we're going to try to have I know a lot of people here have experiences with that. And we're going to try to draw that conversation out and help solve each other's problem. I'm merely the facilitator here. And I would like to have a discussion with you guys. I want to know what you think. about the problems that you faced in trying to promote agility in a traditional environment. Let me say this. There's a place for traditional. We're not saying that traditional is bad and agile is good. We're saying there's a spectrum and we need to find that blend, and that blend is what we're calling hybrid, the hybrid blend. And our focus tonight is going to be on the roles, because we find that there's generally a role conflict between project management and Scrum Master, product owner, and so forth. So we're going to try to discuss that and yeah, you know, see what kind of solutions we could come up with for that.
I love it. I love it. What a great topic. Well, Tanya, I'd love to turn it over to Steve, and if we're ready.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like we're ready.
Steven.
So let's roll.
Awesome.
Okay.
Steven,
So
thanks again for your time. So go ahead and take it away.
All right. Again, like we just said, I would like for this to be interactive. So use your little use the chat box. Raise your hand. Speak up. And let's just have a discussion. We're going to learn together. I'm going to learn from you also. So I'll establish the framework for the conversation, and let's just talk through it. So let me share my screen here. The focus is the hybrid agile. Tanya, are you seeing my screen? I'm starting to get feedback here now.
I can see your screen. I'm not sure where the feedback is coming from. Let's see.
Larry.
Okay.
Are we good? Okay. Let's go. All right. Very good. So we're hybrid agile roles in the PMO, right? So we're looking at the project management office. What I found as I went to various organizations and so forth is that, and I went there to launch agile projects, is that the PMO, there was conflict. A lot of times the PMO wanted to do the plan-driven approach, the more defined plan-driven approach. And there was a conflict in that the Agile guys, we were saying, well, we don't know for sure what we're going to build and when we're going to build it. And our project manager is saying, well, you got to know. I need you to have this delivered on this date and so forth and so on. So there was there's a conflict there. But we find that a lot of the time that conflict is not real. The conflict is just from traditions, right? The project manager has their control traditions, and the Agile group had their traditions. But there was a blend. There was a middle point that we could reach, that we could allow both the project manager to have his rigid structure and his cost and schedule controls, yet the Agile team has the flexibility to innovate. So they're not mutually exclusive. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight. And we're going to talk about how those roles can work together in order to make that happen. But first of all, I would like to get, we're going to talk about the problem. Then we're going to talk about Agile versus Waterfall. Then we'll talk about hybrid. What is hybrid? How do we blend the two? And then we're going to talk about project management in that hybrid environment. And then we're going to get specific and talk about the team roles and responsibilities in that hybrid environment. And that's what you really need to see. You need to see that because that's going to give you the picture. When you basically see like a work breakdown structure and say, this guy does that, this guy does this in a hybrid environment, that's speaking your language. And I think we could leave you with a really good understanding of what we mean about hybrid agile in the PMO. But before I do that, I would like for you to point your smartphones at this QR code and tell me, have you ever experienced role conflict or any kind of conflict between Waterfall and Agile in your organization? And I'll display the results here. So I'll also put the link in the chat room if you prefer that. There's the link in no, that went directly to. Okay, let me make that to everybody. Okay. So as you can see, this is not just a single problem. You know, some people haven't had a conflict, and that's good, and some it don't apply to. But look at the greatest majority of us have seen this conflict, have seen this role conflict. It's built into the structure. And I teach Agile, and when I teach Agile, I teach it as if project management doesn't even exist. I teach it as Agile, a standalone methodology that starts at point A and ends at point B, and that's it. I don't teach how to interface with traditional project management. That's not what the courses are about. The courses are about Agile. So we sort of teach that. And that's what this hybrid approach is sort of to help fix that. But we've seen, and I've seen all over the place, that conflict. The Agile teams are almost outside of the PMO. Sometimes they have to hide from the PMO. When we started Agile over at Blue Cross, it was done independently. It wasn't done with the PMO. The PMO finally came into it, but it wasn't done. And I find that a lot of places I go, it's done outside of the PMO. It's the development team will say, hey, let's try Agile, and they'll just do it. And that's how it gets started. And the PMO will hear about it, and then it becomes something. But there's always some role conflict because the project manager has its role and it has its need to control cost, schedule, and performance. It's still locked in our iron triangle, whereas the Agile team is not necessarily so. So thank you guys for answering that. The problem, the project managers have an existing management system. They're taught by the PMI, right? They're taught risk management, communications management. You know all of the fields, schedule management, cost management is fairly structured, and there's a need for that. There's a need for that plan-driven approach. I wouldn't want to build a bridge with an Agile approach. Yeah. I want to build a bridge with a plan-driven approach. Will I start with my infrastructure and then I add to it and so forth? I wouldn't necessarily want to do cancer research with a plan-driven approach. There's too many unknowns. I would want to do a more agile approach so I could have discovery and refinement of my process, right? Because there's too many unknowns out there. There's too many uncertainties out there. The bridge building, that's fixed. I know this bank to this bank, up X high, car is going to go over it. There's things I know. So I would prefer a plan-driven approach. So there's a place for both of these. There's a place for both of these, and there's a spectrum in between. The problem with the plan-driven approach, sometimes that constrains business because we don't like change, right? When we develop in a plan-driven approach, when we develop our plan, our cost, schedule, and performance, we don't want to really change. We put in a process called change management, but it's a terroristic plot to keep the business from changing their mind. Right? So we try to restrain change in that, and we want to keep it. So it may constrain the business. On the other hand, Agile is a little bit looser, but this is where project managers have a problem. Managing cost and managing schedule in an Agile environment becomes very problematical. You can't see it the same way you see it in a plan-driven environment. It's a little bit different. Where the way the Agilists see it is that their cost and schedule are fixed every 2 sprints, but their requirements flex, right? Their requirements are variable. Well, a project manager is not going to buy that variable requirements. No, I need scope. I need scope, and we need to manage scope. Where an Agile team would not necessarily see that the same way. So there's built-in problems. There's built-in conflict that causes those roles to collide. The roles of product owner, the roles of Scrum Master, the roles of project manager, the roles of product owner, and the roles of program manager. This is where the built-in conflict is those different attitudes about the plan-driven approach and all of the control that's necessary for that, and the more agile or iterative or incremental adaptive approach and its lack of control, right? And its lack of control. That's where the major conflict is. Okay. Let me see, there's a question that says, yeah, and lost the question. Okay, I'll pick it up later. So basically, this is the picture, right? The traditional software development plan-driven approach, where we develop the plan in the beginning. We develop the requirements in the beginning. An assumption is that most of the requirements are knowable in the beginning, and then we take them through the cycle of analysis, design, build, test, and then eventually release. That stair-step approach is the reason why we call it waterfall, but it's a plan-driven approach. As opposed to the more agile approach, we're doing this exact same thing. We're doing analysis, design, build, test, but we're doing it in little small increments. This is my one sentence definition of Agile. Agile is taking a large complex problem, breaking it into smaller problems, assigned to a cross-functional team that delivers incrementally with fast feedback to the end user, period. That's it. And any Agile class that you go to will take that one sentence and break that down and explode that, right? But that's basically it. Big problem, smaller problem, cross-functional team, deliver incrementally, and engage the end user. The end user is involved. And that's basically it. But we're still doing the analysis, design, build, test, but we're doing them in smaller increments, generally about 2 weeks. So we're delivering value more often, and we have a short feedback cycle. Whereas in the traditional approach, you won't know that the customer generally doesn't know what you're delivering until the release, until they're just before the release when they're doing the UAT. That works well for a bridge. You don't want anybody driving over the bridge until the bridge is finished, right? But that doesn't necessarily work well for cancer researcher or something like that, where you need incremental improvements. And you could make other discoveries other than related to cancer through this process, right? So there's innovation there, and so it's a way of dealing with complexity. Someone wrote that decomposition is the correct response to complexity. Decomposition is the correct response to complexity. That is, if it's complex, break it down into something smaller until it's simple. Until it's simple. Fix that simple thing, and then it's still complex in the large, but in the small it's not. So decomposition is the correct response to complexity, right? And that's what Agile does for us. The differences between those two is on the Agile, there's a much more there's a partnership with the business. There's and traditional there's a partnership also, because the business is in the beginning, they're partnering and developing the requirements and so forth. But in Agile, there's a partnership throughout the software development lifecycle. The business stays with the development team. They don't go away. They don't sign off and then send the BA. They stay with the team. So there's a partnership. And that allows, and this is where the project managers would go crazy, that allows the business to change directions. The project manager is saying, wait a minute, you have the plan, you have the requirements document, stay with the plan. And in Agile, we're saying, no, if your business reality change, you change too, right? You change too. It's a cross-functional team. Everybody necessary to design, build, and test is on that cross-functional team. Everybody necessary to design, build, test, and sometimes deploy is on that cross-functional team. What does that eliminate? The silos. How does that help? I'm telling you, as a project manager, I'm so excited to talk to a bunch of project managers about this, because as a project and a program manager myself, the greatest joy I have is executing an Agile project. It makes life easier, because a lot of my time was spent moving across silos, chasing people down, trying to make sure tasks get done, and checking the completion of tasks and stuff like that. Here, because the team is all together, we don't have those silos. We don't have, but the silos may exist, but you have a team where members from the silos are on your team. And therefore you have one place to go to find out what's going on and so forth. So the cross-functional team, rolling wave planning. We don't know what the future holds. So instead of pretending we do and build this big monolithic plan, we do rolling wave planning. Rolling wave planning is that you have higher level, less detail in the future, more detail as you get toward the now, right? So for tomorrow, I'll have a lot of detail, but for 6 months from now, I'll have less detail. And then I fill in the detail as time goes on. As time goes on. So Agile allows us to do that rolling wave plan. We don't have to know the end state. We don't have to know exactly when we're going to do something, but we should know what we're going to deliver the next few iterations, right? We should know the detail about them. We should know, we should have it refined. We should understand the requirements, right? So the rolling wave planning, incremental and iterative development. Now, there's a difference. There's a difference. Iterative is I'm delivering something, delivering an iteration where if I'm building the car, for instance, I will deliver the wheels first. Then I would deliver the frame. Then I would deliver the engine, right? That's iterative. And that has its place. Sometimes that's the way the production works, right? Incremental is different. Is the customer needs the ability to transport themselves somewhere. So my first delivery might be a skateboard. My second delivery might be a bicycle. My third delivery might be a car. You see what I'm saying? So incremental, I have little a vertical slice of value that I can use, right? As opposed to something that I cannot use. So incremental is different from iterative, but they both work together. They both work together, right? Someone has brought up the Empire State Building in New York was designed with some agile aspects. Absolutely, you see a lot of that. That's why it happens so quickly. When you see some buildings nowadays, especially skyscrapers. Yeah, in the case of the Empire State Building, they didn't know what some of the floors would look like and had already started building the building, right? And so forth. You see some skyscrapers with tenants in the lower half of the skyscraper while they're still building the upper half. You know, so there's a lot of stuff like that. The hybrid model would be more beneficial to the construction industry. Okay, so we talked about the difference between incremental and iterative. Iterative is I give you something every iteration. Incremental is value. I give you something of value that you can use every iteration. Some of the problems I've seen in Waterfall. Again, Waterfall has its value, but some of the problems that I've seen as a software developer is the problems and requirements are not discovered until late. Generally, in a software development project, we don't do UAT. The customer doesn't see it until the end, until we're about to release it, or after we've released it. That's when the cost of change is enormous. That's when it's enormous. After it's released, they're very expensive and time consuming. I've seen that, and any of you that have been in the business for a while, you have seen that too. That's where we get the definition of failure. 50 to 70% of software projects are still failing. Still failing. They've been failing for a while and they're still failing. Why? They're failing to meet cost, schedule, or performance. It doesn't necessarily mean I'm not doing everything the business asked for. Yes, we are delivering what they asked for 18 months ago, but it's not what they need now. That's the difference. That's the failure. That's the failure. The business cycle has changed. Look, I love Amazon Prime. I could listen to NPR today and I could swipe right on a book title and it's here tomorrow before lunch. Come on. That's called frictionless transactions. That's what everybody expects. That's what's reducing. That's what's getting smaller and smaller. The frictionless transaction. People, they want something almost and it appears, right? And so when they described something 18 months ago, yes, it was what they wanted then, But in our traditional sense, we do change management and scope management and so forth, and we give them exactly what they ask for when that's not what they want, right? They want what they need now. So it's a little bit different, and whole business environment is changing. There's frictionless transactions that are changing. The business doesn't know what they need until they see what you got, what you delivered to them, and then they start figuring out what they want. So that's, so I'm saying that to say that having the business not seeing the software until the end or the product until the end is built-in problems. And I've seen that problem over and over. I've also seen the overemphasis on change control. So we meet cost and schedule, but we fail to deliver the business value. We, the project manager, call that a successful project. The business calls it a failure. So we have that conflict. Because we met all our metrics. Our metrics say it's gonna cost this, and we're gonna deliver that, and we're gonna deliver according to the requirements document, and we did. And the business said, this is not of value to me now. So they call it a failure, right? You've seen it too. You've seen it too. And then not having the business involved in the process, you lose that opportunity for feedback. You build something, you follow the requirements, you deliver it, and there's no feedback for change. Policy changes, things happen, pandemics happen, and so forth that will cause the software requirements to change, but they're not engaged in the process. I've seen those. Have you seen some of these problems? What kind of problems have you seen with the traditional approach? Let's do one more thing. Let's do this QR code, and let's look at some of the problems that you've seen. And give me just 2-word answers, 1 or 2 words. Just give me some of the problems that you've seen with using traditional or plan-driven approach. Sometimes it's required, sometimes it's needed, but oftentimes there's a problem. So let's look at that. Okay, if you could scan that QR code and let me put the link in there. Okay, I see lack of flexibility and so forth. Let's put that in on Menti. I put the link in there, and you could do you could use your smartphone to scan the QR code, and let's see what are some of your problems. We're going to do a word picture. Anybody having problems getting to Menti? Oh, it says waiting for the next slide. Okay.
Yeah, it's taking me ages to open the menti.com, and it's saying, please wait for the presenter to show the next slide. Okay, I got it now.
Okay, good. Okay, there we go. We got it now. If you could put it in Menti, I would certainly appreciate it. What are some of the problems that you've seen in traditional, the plan-driven approach? Lack of accountability. Oh, changing team members. Yeah, buddy. Yes, yeah. changing team members. Siloed groups.
I think in the long-term projects, at least 3-4 project managers change.
Yes, a lack of stability. That's one of the things that we want to do we try to do in Agile projects is maintain stability. Silo, scope creep. Approval process too long. That's called external dependency. Yes, this is what we found. If we take and break, I tell you about you take the big problem and break it into smaller problems. The smaller problems have fewer dependencies, fewer impediments, because you could get them through the system faster. So you end up going faster by breaking those requirements down into something that you can do in 2 weeks. You end up getting through the system a lot faster, and you start eliminating some of these things that we see on the board, some of the misunderstandings, some of the bad requirements and so forth, because now we're looking at a little small piece, and we show that to the customer at the end of 2 weeks, and they get a chance to say, no, that's not quite right. It's the wrong color. I think the login screen, the logo should have been on the top left instead of the bottom right. So you see, so we start fixing those things. So we have fewer impediments when we process smaller items. Okay, good. That's good. So you see what some of the problems that we've seen in the traditional approach. And what I want to convince you of is that we could make this a more hybrid approach, that uses captures the benefit of both. The benefit of both. We could eliminate some of the problems that you've seen in the traditional approach, and we can then get some of the innovation we see in the Agile approach. So guys, thank you for participating there. This is the deal. Everybody, we've seen a lot of people act like it's a binary choice. Either I do Agile or Waterfall. And that's a false dichotomy, right? It's not a binary choice. There's a spectrum. We could apply certain things. Some of the projects that I'm working with now, they're early in the phases. They're adopting some of the ceremonies of Agile without doing fully. They don't fully do Agile, but they do the daily stand-up. They start with the daily stand-up, right? And they're still Waterfall. They start with the daily stand-up. So there's things you could do to make a more hybrid approach that you could gain innovation, yet maintain the control, the cost and schedule control that's required. And that's what this hybrid is about. How do I maintain cost and schedule control as a project manager, yet allow the Scrum Master and those other roles the freedom to be able to innovate, So they see it as binary, as mutually exclusive, but no, it's not, right? We need to see the approaches as complementary rather than competitive. The hybrid approach blends the plan-driven principles and practices proportionate to fit the given situation, right? Not prescriptive, do step 1, step 2, step 3. No, not prescriptive. General guidelines that we follow, but the project manager, this is where it's important for project managers. There's practices and skills that and we're going to talk at the end about what are those practices and skills that they have to develop in order to be able to use this hybrid approach. There's some additional skills that you need in addition to the ones that you already have. Or for doing a traditional plan-driven approach, there's a few more skills you need to add to your little book of skills in order to make this work for you. But hybrid is a blending the plan-driven principles, so we get the benefit, the control of that, and the control and the predictability of that, with the innovation of and engagement of the Agile approach. So we were talking about Agile for projects that have a low risk profile. I already know what I'm doing. I'm building a bridge. Waterfall is perfect. Do we have software development projects where we're just building the bridge? Yes, we do. Right, we do. We have them that are just short and sweet, couple of months long. I'm doing something. There's little risk and so forth. So we do Waterfall. If the risk becomes higher, then we get a little bit more iterative. Right, we start delivering maybe iterative. We deliver some basic components, and then deliver some other components on top of that and so forth. But we keep doing activities until we reduce or identify the problems or resolve the risk. Identify and resolve risk. That's what iterative nature is, allowing us to go through the cycle to identify and resolve risk and impediments and dependencies and clear those up. If we need a little bit more aggressive delivery, then incremental, right? You're delivering some value that the customer can see, and the customer can correct you as you go along, so that you end up delivering more value sooner. And then finally, if it's just extremely complex environment, do full agile techniques, right? And I tell you one example of that would have been the cancer research or something like that, where you need an empirical process where you take a few steps, you check yourself, am I in the right place? Take a few more steps, right? When you need that empirical process, you change the process based on what you learn, taking a few steps, right? So that's the purest agile form. But with this hybrid fit for purpose, we can do each one of these based on the risk profile, the risk the customer is willing to accept, the engagement, in the waterfall. We don't have to have the customer as engaged as we do when it's agile. One of the things that I find is when, especially launching an agile project, when you sell an agile project, the business is saying, yeah, we want to be involved. We're tired of IT telling us what requirements we have and they're delivering the wrong thing. We want to be involved. But when you start executing and say, now I need a product owner full time, and I need SMEs 25% of the time. When you start hitting on their capacity, then the business start backing off. Right? Because now they understand how engaged they have to be. Sometimes they back off and sometimes they enjoy the engagement, but a lot of times they'll back off. The more agile you are, the more engaged the business is. The more you are toward the traditional approach, the less engaged they are. They just sign off documents and look at milestones and stage gates and so forth, but they're not as engaged in the day-to-day process. The fully agile environment, they are right there while the guys are writing code, sitting in the same room. Okay. We said if the waterfall and agile can be complementary, wouldn't they need to understand both approaches? Absolutely. And I could tell you this, that the PMI has adopted Discipline Agile as its agile approach, and Discipline Agile is a hybrid approach. It's not fully agile like scaled agile, but it's more of a hybrid approach. Somebody say, how do you recommend we deal with the C-levels when they hear about agile, but they still want to keep the same controls, predictability in the portfolio? We're going to talk about that. That's where the hybrid approach, you stated the problem that the hybrid approach fixes, right? So that's absolutely fantastic. That's one of the things why we need the hybrid approach, because oftentimes they want that same predictability. They want to know, or they want a milestone, they want a stage gate, they want those things, yet they want the innovation of Agile, that new way of working. Okay. All right. So what I want you to see on this slide is that there's a spectrum. There's a spectrum all the way from traditional plan-driven all the way to fully agile. There's a spectrum in between, and we need to know how to tailor that in a more hybrid approach to be able to satisfy the customer requirement and reduce risk and assure control of the project. Okay. That's the conflict. Yeah, so right. The project is requires some defined cost, schedule, and milestones. That's what you were saying. The C-suite wants those same cost, schedule, and milestones. However, the C-suite also wants agile. They want both of them. They want that fixed cost, schedule, and predictability, but they also want agile. They want the innovation and the quickness of agile. They've read the books. They've attended some classes. They want that, but they still want the predictability. This is where the spectrum between that waterfall and that more adaptive, innovative, agile approach goes. That's that Venn diagram. That's the hybrid. And that's what we're talking about tonight. That's the higher, between those two statements is where hybrid lives. Giving us the structure, the predictability, and the innovation and flexibility. This is an approach. Now, this came from the Project Manager's Guide to Mastering Agile by Chuck Cobb, but it lays out the basic structure. Now, when I teach Agile, do you think I teach the top part? No, I teach the bottom part. I teach Scrum, and we teach Agile as if requirements just show up, and we just start building stuff. We start delivering value. That schedule shows up and we just start delivering value. We don't teach a part where the project manager goes out and struggles and gets a business idea and translates that business idea into something of that describes something of value and then estimates how long it's going to take and all that kind of stuff. That's boring. We don't teach that in Agile. Right. So the Paul said he took a class from Mr. Cobb. That's is fantastic stuff, man. Fantastic stuff. So if you get a chance to do that, please do that. But this is the deal. That there's things that have to happen, that inception phase, and that was one of the things that I taught and worked in at IBM. We had the IBM had a methodology called Ascend. SAP had a methodology called something else. It was like a sin, it was called something else. But it had the phases where you had that initiation phase, which was done in a more traditional plan-driven approach. And then you had Agile during the development phase, but it had an overlay of project management on top of that. You still had high-level milestones. So we still need the traditional project management layer with the charter. That's where your scope is, right? With your schedule. Even if it's Agile, I have to deliver something by X time, right? I have to deliver something. There's minimum viable product, whatever it is, I have to deliver something by X time. And the ongoing project management. But the difference is that instead of detailed tasks, this project manager is working at higher level tasks, things we call epics and features, right? So they apply those things, and then down at the micro layer, the Scrum Master is just reporting percentage complete against those features. Okay. So he's Mr. Cobb talks about two different envelopes: that outer envelope that envelops Agile, but it's still traditional. So therefore, your CEO, your C-suite still sees milestones, phase gates, the traditional stuff, and percentage completes, while the Agile team still works in decomposing the features into user stories and allowing a self-organizing, self-managing team. What do we mean by that? That the team decides what to do, when to do, how to do it. But from the top part, they pass down the priority. This is the epic I want, and this is the priority for this epic, and this is when it's due. Now, the team can take that based on that priority, break that down and say, okay, we need to do this first, this second, and this third, right? So they're allowed to innovate within that structure, within the structure. So it's not the Agile team doing whatever it wants. There's a macro layer out there that envelops the team, where we're still doing the traditional PMP stuff. We're still doing risk management. We're still doing communication, stakeholder management. All of that stuff is still happening, but it's happening at this macro layer, at the program project layer, while down at the team layer, we're allowing the Scrum Master and the product owner to have free reign within these boundaries. So now we could report on those larger things, those larger epics and larger features. Okay, that allows that more adaptive approach. So the question is, how do you hold a schedule if the requirements change at the micro layer? This is the good part about that. Down at the micro layer, there's a role in the micro layer called a product owner. The product owner represents the business. So the product owner, and when they say we're going to change the priority on this or that, they're speaking for the business. So it's not we, the consultants, we, the contractors, we, the development team. It's the business making the change. That's the change we still allow. We still allow that kind of flexibility down at that lower level, but it's reported back up. So the product owner might decide, we don't need this feature. We need that feature. Let me give you this. Do you know that 65% of all the software features and components that are delivered in systems today are rarely, if ever, used? Only 20% are used all the time. 20% are used all the time. So when we have all these requirements, with Agile, the innovation of Agile, and because we have the business there, it allows them to reprioritize things. So we're constantly working on the top 20%. So generally, when the product owner reprioritize things, there's a good reason for it. And we're constantly wanting the product owner to reprioritize things so that we can keep hitting that 20% and not hit that 65%. We want to stop before we get down there. We want to keep hitting that 20%. So there is flexibility in that macro layer. There is flexibility in the change when it's initiated by the product owner. Now, that's a good question. The product owner is responsible. The question was, does the product owner can change things for the C-suite? Well, that's why it's important that the C-suite appoints product owner. They get the charter from the C-suite. They're speaking for the C-suite. The product owner, generally, there's a vision. The C-suite would have a vision, and the product owner works from that vision, right? And then that gives them a lot of room. So from the C-suite, we don't want the C-suite to say, build this feature this date, but the C-suite can say, this is the vision. We need to be able to offer this service by fourth quarter. Now, the product owner has the vision, and they work within that. The C-suite wouldn't say, build this next week and build this the week after. The product owner would say that. Now, what about the role of the product manager? We're going to get into those roles here in a little bit, but a product manager, you generally have a product manager when you have multiple teams. If you have a single team, the product owner becomes the product manager. So you don't have to have a separate product manager. But when you have multiple teams and you're starting to scale up, that's when you need a product manager. The product manager generally interfaces with the business. The product owner, in that particular case, interfaces with the team. But the product owner still has the responsibility for the ROI, for delivering the value for what the customer paid. Whatever they paid for the teams and so forth, the product owner has the responsibility for assuring that the business receives value for that. For 8 teams, you would generally have a product manager. You generally have a product manager. If not, well, you have to coordinate it in some sort of way. Scaled Agile calls for us to do quarterly planning or PI planning. If not, the freedom that you're giving product owners, you would have 8 people could possibly go in different directions. So there has to be a vision, there has to be a controlling thing, and that controlling thing is generally the product manager. Now, can a program manager be a product manager? Could very well. Can a project manager be a product manager? Could very well, right? So you could blend those roles into single people, right, and so forth. So. In setting up the project, and I'm just stepping through this to just give you an idea of how it's just like setting up another project, except a few little differences. You set up the project schedule. You're doing the same thing. That's the same thing that a project manager would do. Now, of course, you're doing a lot of other things, but it's the project schedule that's important. What do I need to deliver when? What do I need to deliver when? Now, the difference is you're setting up Agile, you're breaking the big components, the big problem down into small pieces. When we break it down, we call it at the project level, that's an initiative. Then we would have a epic. Then that would be broken down into multiple features. That would be broken down into multiple user stories, and that would be broken down into multiple tasks, right? At that point, that taxonomy, that hierarchy is what's agreed to here, because that's how I'm going to do my reporting. That's how we do reporting. And that's how the project manager stays on top of it, by being a part of that hierarchy and breaking it down. Generally, the project manager is only going to be worried about that first couple of levels, the epic or the feature. It's not worried about the user story or task or anything like that. They're only worried about the epic or the feature, and they're only worried about percentage complete of that, right? That gives the team the flexibility to be more innovative by the project manager not drilling down on a traditional project, drills down to task and who assigned task and so forth. An Agile project, the project manager is never worried about that. The team takes care of that. The project management that you understand today is distributed amongst the team. The product owner is responsible for requirements. The Scrum Master is responsible for process. The Agile team is responsible for delivery. For delivery. So the project manager doesn't have to control all that stuff. What the project manager needs to control is this high-level schedule and reporting to senior management, right? And of cost, right? Cost and the normal things that we do, cost, schedule, and performance, right? So the project manager sets that up, and then you set up Agile stuff, the ceremonies, the roles, product owner, Scrum Master, and so forth. The daily stand-up, the sprint planning, and so forth. You set that up in addition to the product backlog. Okay. Then you establish the best practices. The cadence every 2 weeks. The quarterly planning. We plan as a group. We plan quarterly, and we break that down to every 2 weeks, and we plan what we're going to do. Then adjust that for reporting. Again, that's what as I work on a task, I should be able to take my task and tie that to a user story. That user story is tied to a feature. That feature is tied to an epic, and the project manager worries about percentage complete against an epic percentage complete, right? That's what he's worried about. He's not worried about my task or even a user story. The team's worried about that. He's worried about what percent complete do I have against this epic? And based on that percentage complete, I should be, and the velocity of the team, I should be able to project when that's going to be complete, or project if we're in trouble, if I'm falling behind, right? If we're falling behind. Okay, so the KPIs, and then you do continuous improvement. So, and we have in Agile ways of doing it, continuous improvement. We do it through training, and we do it through feedback loops. What are the feedback loops? The daily stand-up. When the team is saying, this is what I did yesterday, this is what I'm doing today, and this is the problem I'm having, we have an opportunity to fix that. When we, this iteration review, when we bring the business in and say, this is what we built over the last 2 weeks, is this what you want? Again, a feedback loop. And then when we do the retrospective with the team and say, what did we do well this past 2 weeks? What did we do not so well? And what do we need to do to improve? There's another feedback loop. So you have those 3 feedback loops from daily to business oriented to team oriented that you're going through to help improve the process. And you will see over time, if you do this, you will see over time the velocity is the speed with which a team delivers value. You will see that velocity increase. You will see that velocity over a period of time double. You can see it double, the speed with which the team can deliver if you follow these and you do these well. But you have to allow the team to innovate. Why? Because they are the ones with the problem. They are the ones who know the problem, and they are the ones that know the solution. You can't have a project manager coming in saying, do this, do it this way. Let the team figure out how to do it. And that's what the hybrid project allows us to do. It allows us to have that control that we need and predictability that we need, but it also allows us to have that innovation at the tail end. This is the way it sort of looks in responsibility. We have a project. Used to be the project manager was in the middle of the circle and everybody was on the outside. The project manager controlled all information, off-channel reporting, and everything. But here in the more agile environment, here at this level, that initiative level, that macro level, the project manager works with the business owner, executive sponsor, program manager, and the solution architect, along with the business analyst, and that's building that schedule. Identifying the product backlog at a high level, epic feature level, not user stories. They have no idea what the user stories look like, but they have at the epic level. What they want to know is what is it that the business needs, and then what's the benefit to the business, and then how large it is, right? That's basically what they want to know. So at a high epic level, you have a solution architect that's figuring what does this plug into? What are the innies and outies? What are the interfaces and so forth? But they're working on building that initial backlog. The business analyst is central to this. This business analyst, somebody asked about the product manager. When I have a single team, that this function of understanding the requirements and being able to understand the perspective of the user is a business analyst. But when I have multiple teams, that becomes a product manager. That role becomes a product manager role. They identify the high-level epics, the benefit, the priority, right? These folks are this is schedule. So this is what I need to deliver when I need to deliver it. That's what they're working on. High level, what I need to deliver. High level, what I need to deliver when I need to deliver it. And then this is communicated to the product owner. The product owner now represents the business once we're executing. And the Scrum Master is now doing what the project manager would normally do down at the team level. The Scrum Master is making sure that the process is working and impediments are removed. Okay, facilitating all events. The product owner is representing the business and answering questions from the developers. Should it be left, right? How should we calculate this? What's the formula? How should it appear on the screen? The product owner is representing the business. So now the developer doesn't have to go back to the project manager business. The developer goes to someone on the team called a product owner, as well as the tester. The business analyst and the product developed acceptance criteria. The tester wrote test cases against the acceptance criteria, and the components that the developer builds is tested against that test script. Okay, so that's basically the way it looked. The executive sponsor is the same as we have it today. This is where it works for you. To the business, to the C-suite, when they look down, it appears nothing has changed. They get a project manager that's answering their questions about schedule and cost, right? Below the waterline, the Agile team is working in an innovative fashion. Okay, so you have up at the initiative level, and then you have it at the team level. Okay, any questions on that? Any questions on it? It's important that you understand that. So the question is, how do you recommend the hybrid approach in the SOX compliance? The SOX compliance, and they have a load of documentation requirements. Now, when we say we're doing Agile, we reduce documentation sets, but we do not eliminate documentation. Okay, compliance is a big part of Agile. If we deliver business value, but compliance is business value. Okay, compliance to higher authority is delivering business value. So if higher authority say that we have to create a document, we write a user story and we create the document, right? But you're going to find that senior level compliance stuff is generally handled in this circle, not this circle. This is a circle that's building business value. This is the circle that's assuring compliance. Does that make sense, Cesar? Okay, good. Let me see. Much better to have rapid feedback. Someone says this. They talked about the rapid feedback. Well, okay, what I want to show you here is this is just an example of roles and responsibilities. I know you project managers like seeing roles and responsibilities and so forth. But one of the things I want you to notice, these are all the things that you would generally do in a hybrid Agile team, right? This up here is this is the PMP, project management stuff. This is the project managers stuff that they normally do. And you see the project manager up here in the early part of the project, that's what they're doing. But as the project moves on, you'll see that responsibility starts changing, and the Scrum Master is starting to lead a bunch of stuff as the team start moving on. That's when we're moving down into that lower circle. We also see that the team here, they're responsible for things, the development, the SIT testing, UAT testing. The team is doing that on their own. There's no leader, there's no line manager, there's no functional manager, there's no other lead that's there doing that. The team is deciding what to do, when to do, and how to do it. So we still have the innovation in this model. We still have, this is that upper circle up here, and this is the lower circle down here. We still have the innovation. The people writing the code knows the best way to solve the problem. The people writing the code, the people with their fingers on the keyboard that are sitting with users who use the system is the best way to do it, as opposed to having a project manager write tasks and requirements documents signed off and so forth. Those people are live, sitting there every day, looking at it, saying, no, it'll be better done like this or like that. So we have both the innovation of Agile and we have up here the control of the traditional approach. We also have the engagement. Well, I want you to see the engagement of the business. This is all business engagement here. That's the product owner and the subject matter expert. They're engaged in the whole process. This is in that lower circle. They're fully engaged. They're watching every day. Every time a developer builds something, in some cases, it's shown to the rest of the team. The team makes the decision right then and there, before it goes to production, before it goes to testing in some cases, that whether or not it's satisfying the requirement. And they'll be able to tweak the requirement and ensure that we are delivering exactly what the business is expecting now. Not what they expected 18 months ago, what they expect now. Okay. So let me get to some of the questions here. Okay, based on the Agile model you show, could we say project manager is more worried about the release plan than the sprint level? Yes. Yes. I'm gonna go back to that. That's very important that you brought that up. Because this is where the release plan, the team here is worried about sprints. You're absolutely right. This project manager is worried about, now, when you get larger and you have more and more teams, then this is going to become a release manager or release train engineer, right? But this person up here is concerned about releases. At every point where it's going to enter production, this person is engaged. This is build on cadence, release on demand. The team is building on cadence. They're building something every 2 weeks. That's not necessarily going into production or going to the end user. These people up here decide when it goes to the end user. So yes, they are managing. That is the release schedule. That's the schedule that the C-suite want to know. They want to know, when does this get in the hands of my end users? Right? That's what they want to know. That person is still responsible for that. And when it gets large and there's a product manager, then these two people together. So that's why I say it's tailoring. You have to tailor it based on the size of the effort and so forth. As it gets bigger and bigger, then this sort of changes. You have the project manager and the product managers being two different things. If it's small, these two people can be the same thing, right? And so forth. So it varies. Okay. With the expanding adoption of digital, do solution architects find openings in modern PMOs, or is that function generally provided by the client or the third party? The solution architect is generally outside of outside of the PMO. They're generally from the EA, from the enterprise architect, wherever that is. And enterprise architecture is not often embedded in the PMO. It's generally with the CIO or something like that. But that solution architect is the person that's looking, concerned about the data and all the innies and the outies, right, on the system diagram. They're worried about all the innies and the outies and the white space in between systems and so forth. That's what they're concerned about. So we're finding that they're not in the PMO. Now, they're generally not in the PMO. I have seen PMOs where the solution architect is embedded in the PMO. Paul, did that answer your question? Okay. Okay, good. So, the important thing, this is the hybrid model. This is how everybody, when they're looking at the project from above, from the C-suite, they see no change. They see tradition. Down below, the duck's feet are going like that, right? The team's delivering, and they're doing it in an innovative fashion. Okay. Now, when we try to have the team as the only model, and the team is reporting information up to C-suite and so forth, that's where conflict happens. Because I could tell you, even your finance, your budgeting and finance and all that kind of stuff, those guys, they are tradition. They do general and accepted procedures, and they don't want to do no agile, right? So, and contracting, right? Same thing. A lot of those don't want to do agile. So this gives that comfort. You still have a project manager. And again, depending on the size, this project manager role can be the Scrum Master also, depending on the size. Okay, and I just wanted to say, in building the right thing the right way at the right time, that strategy, the program manager still in a hybrid approach is focused on the strategy. The project manager is still focused on the initiative or the project. And the Scrum Master is focused on delivery. Okay, so they're really working together. Scrum Master, is working with the team. This is as far as the PMO is concerned. These are the people that will come from the PMO. Now, from the business is the product owner and the SMEs and so forth. But from the PMO to provide project management is the program manager focused on strategy, the project manager focused on the initiative, and the Scrum Master focused on the actual delivery. Okay. Now, what are the skills that a project manager needs to put in their quiver in order to do this? What are some of the things? Well, one of the things that a project manager is trained to do is to do cost-driven or schedule-driven delivery, not value-driven delivery. It's something different. Value-driven delivery allow us to proceed and allow change to happen, because what is valuable today is not necessarily what's valuable tomorrow. Our project started 18 months ago, and what was valuable then is not valuable now. So we have the business on the team with us to assure value-driven delivery as opposed to cost-driven or schedule-driven delivery. Also, customer value prioritization, some method to allow the customer to prioritize the work based on the value delivered. Based on the value delivered. And there's all kinds for doing that, weighted chart up first, cost of so forth, but get some experience on customer value prioritization. Rolling wave planning, I don't have to know the details for 6 months from now. I don't have to know the details. I need to know the details for the next month, right? I need to know the epics for 6 months from now, but I don't need to know the features. Allow the team and the business a chance to this is what allows them to change. We don't ask for the detail, we leave it high level, then as we get closer, they're able to provide the change. They're able to understand it a little better and provide the change. The product and project vision. We have to keep the senior leadership, the C-suite, focused on the vision and not focused on the execution details. So we need to understand how to do a product visioning session to help guide the team through establishing the vision. The vision is then decomposed into epics, that's decomposed into features, that's decomposed into user stories, that's decomposed into tasks. Tasks are generally things that are done in a day. User story is things that are done in 2 weeks. A feature is generally a thing that's done within the quarter, and an epic is the delivery of some major component, right? So once we do that, once we use that hierarchy, we could start predicting like when we could deliver stuff, because we know the little timetables for each one of those. We size those such that they're done in 2 weeks. It's not like somebody can say, oh, here's the user story, it automatically is done in 2 weeks. No, we break the user story down into parts that can be done in 2 weeks. Tasks, we break tasks down until they can be done in a day, right? So it becomes a little bit more predictable. Functional decomposition is exactly what I just told you. That functional, from breaking it down from the vision all the way down to a daily task. Progressive elaboration, not progressively elaborating. So we don't have to, when I identify Epic, I don't need to know the task and the user stories or even the features then, right? But as I start getting closer in schedule for that Epic, I now break that down into features and then features into user stories and user story into tasks. That's the progressive elaboration. The concept of a user story tells us who, what, why, who, what, why, and under what conditions will a business accept this criteria? Who, what, why, acceptance criteria. We need to understand that. The requirements hierarchy, we just talked about that. Product backlog refinement. Somebody had a question about that. As we go through and build these requirements, we don't build them one time and have them signed off. We go through a refinement process. The teams will see their user stories 3-4 times before they agree to actually do it. They'll see it in quarterly planning. They'll see it in backlog refinement. They'll see it in sprint planning, and then they're execute. So they'll see it several times. Each time, the business has a chance to refine that requirement, to understand the requirement, to communicate the requirement to the team. So there's constant refinement. Story mapping. I go from features to stories. I have to map it in a way such that it makes sense and I'm delivering some significant component. Story mapping, and understand distributed project management. Distributed project management, the project manager doesn't do everything that they do in a traditional project. Some of that is passed on to the Scrum Master. Scrum Master manages user stories, tasks, meetings, facilitation, impediments, risk, and so forth. The product owner manages requirements, content, refinement with the business analysts. They manage that. So the responsibilities are shared. So you have distributed project management in the Agile environment. So I would say that for a project manager that wants to use the hybrid approach, these are some of the skill sets that they should deliver to them. Okay, so in summary, there's not a mutually exclusive choice between Agile and traditional. There's a and, right? There's an and. We could do both. The PM has to know how to tailor, how to blend and how to tailor. So that's what you need to pursue. Pursue Discipline Agile. Pursue some of these other books. Chuck Cobb, see him on Agile Project Management, and realize that the PMI has its own Discipline Agile approach. That's a successful hybrid approach. So with that being said, I hope I've covered that. I hope I've answered some questions and generated some interest for you to follow up and pointed you in the right direction. And also let you feel comfortable that there's always a job, even with the Agile approach, there's always a job for a project manager. There's always going to be a job for a project manager. And the project management skills that you have are still important to Agile. We have to just use hybrid Agile. That's what works best for us. Okay. Any questions?
I just wanted to say this was amazing. Thank you. This was so much good information in such a short amount of time too. And I wanted to let everybody on the call know too that we are going to put a recording of this presentation on our website at PMIBatonRouge.org. That should be there either probably sometime tomorrow or the following day. And I'll send it out an alert on LinkedIn as well. One quick thing I had, and this is just to people who are not only members of the chapter, but also members of PMI National. They do have, if you're a member of that, they do have Disciplined Agile and Ways of Working, which is a different methodology that people can download for free, along with the 7th edition of the PMBOK and the 6th edition. While you were talking, I was having discussions with a couple of different people, and I know PMI has more recently incorporated a lot of the hybrid methodology into their new PMBOK, but it's still really important too to go back and read some of the former versions too, because we're in the middle of blending those languages and hitting a lot of walls that not everybody is using the same terminology stack. So it makes adoption kind of difficult. So, But thank you. And I'm going to say one last quick little thing, and this is mostly to the guests right quick for the PDU claim code. I put it in the chat box, but I know we've had a lot of activity. So for those of you that are guests and not current members of the Baton Rouge chapter, the claim code to self-report is C106OLM3LR. And if any of y'all missed that, just email, and I'll be glad to provide that for you too. So, but I wanted to open it up to anybody that's got questions too.
I think Steven wins our award this season for keeping up with the chat.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah.
You did an incredible job at keeping up with the chat while you were delivering your presentation. I was thoroughly impressed. I do not have that level of multitasking abilities. So hats off to you for sure. Terrific presentation. I mean, this is one of my favorite topics, Agile, and the ability to discover problems you face kind of in real time is so unique. And it's something that I know, Lynn, it creates a lot of confusion. There's always this question of, well, how do I really adapt, what I know from a waterfall perspective into this new space? How do you make commits? How do you go to your senior leadership and explain to them what a timeline is going to look like? And the reality is that, when you don't know the problem you're trying to solve that well, that's where Agile is brilliant, right? It's there's things we know we can do. Let's go do those things while we figure out, while we uncover the problem space. When like you said, when we're building a bridge, right? Oftentimes the answer is, we don't need to. We know the problem space. It's build the thing, go build the thing. So I really love the approach that you laid out here. I think it's very enlightened and very, very elegant, in terms of how we can understand it. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I'm basically a waterfall guy. I'm in construction, but I really like the analogy of what I like now may not be what I like in 18 months or what's valued in 18 months. And I think that could translate to any industry. And, that can definitely cross over, from the software aspect to the construction aspect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're finding that the Agile method, there's Agile marketing, Agile HR. It's the big movement now with Agile, now that it's beyond the fad stage, is that it's really crossing over into other specialties, including construction. So, but there are things that the hybrid approach is going to work, because there are things where you need to be more traditional, right? And there's things where you need to be more innovative. But the business cycle now, the digital economy and knowledge workers are what's making Agile work. Knowledge workers are different. They're not like my father, who's a longshoreman, right? And the work is different, right? And the digital economy is moving faster. There's so many companies that Kodak, Motorola, those were high quality companies. You guys remember that, in the 90s. And so, and where are they? Right? They didn't make the change. So we have to make this change. And the more hybrid approach to project management is the change that we need to make. Okay, any other questions?
Oh, you were awesome. So I wanted to say thank you again. And for those of you that are local too, I did want to announce that next week on Thursday, the 17th, it's going to be Michael Zurich and Leanne Teague from Franciscan Missionaries that are joining us. And they're going to be given a little bit of a similar topic, but it's called Tailored to Fit. And they're going to be talking about building the lean PMO at their organization. So for those of you that are available to make it, we would love to see you at Drusilla Seafood. And, y'all will be getting the emails coming from me too. I'll be sending them on this Thursday and then next week as well. So there'll be reminders. So thank you so much.
Okay. Fantastic.
All right.
Thank you so much. And I think that's our wrap for the evening. So thanks everyone for your attendance. Really appreciate seeing you all. Hope to see you in person next week. And we'll see you again very soon.
All right.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank y'all. Bye.